morning. And this is the Cedar and Otis show. And today we're going to talk about a topic that is very, very close to my heart. And Otis, you can ask the question.
Why should we even care about this topic?
What is the topic, though?
Oh, well, the topic is how would Cedar explain to their daughter about their mental health and why it's important, what's important to know about their mental health?
Why is mental health important?
And what is important to know about Cedar's mental health? What would I want my daughter to know is the question. What would I want my daughter to know? And so as someone who lives on disability with a medical disability who is invisible in that and carries an invisible disability, I think Cedar is a great messenger of an untold story. And there are many untold stories like it. Cedar's got many that won't be told today, but this is what will come out. And you need to begin to tell the story of the invisible disability and the experience. And the first question is, what would you want your daughter to know to better relate to you, understand, empathize?
First of all, I'm right here, so you can ask me that. I know we have viewers,
Yes.
but I'm right here.
So we're going to do something called a fishbowl, which is we're going to come into sacred space. We're going to have a conversation, and in this fishbowl, we're inviting sacred witness as we storytell from personal experience and hope that you find relevance in it. And here we go. We're going to really feature Cedar's story today in the fishbowl.
Are you planning on doing some talks with other people too?
Yeah.
Oh.
I want to do a fishbowl about different topics and different stories. We can do it together, other fishbowls about this topic. But let's start today. Okay? Can I light the fire?
I didn't know other people being drawn into it, so that's new for me, but okay.
Well, I think that it's important. We all have different issues and experiences that relate to this. You have different mental health disorders. People will relate to different gender or identity experiences, formative experiences. You're going to relate, people will relate their mental health journey to yours because of. There might be other fishbowls where you or I interview other people. But I think it's important communities start to humanize mental health and invisible disabilities of all kinds and figure out how to relate to it in themselves and other people.
So why me?
All right, hold on. I'm lighting us in. Ready?
Ready.
We're going to light the Salmon Dream House awake. And just ask for the help of all beings, guidance of the ancestors, that and the unseen. Help us in this journey. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All the sacred hosts and guides.
I didn't know you were doing a session on me. I thought we were going to be...
I'm doing a session.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
listening.
Oh.
Having a conversation.
Right.
I think in a fishbowl, it's a human conversation. And in that, we're not teaching or explaining something to the people. We are talking. And there is so much to learn from our lives, our survivor knowledge. And so I'm curious today for mental health, for your journey in particular. I want to know more about it. What's important for people to care about, and that specifically came up because I asked you, what would you like your daughter to know about you and your mental health?
So right now, what's coming up is, why is talking about disability or invisible disability so important? Why should others care? Why should you care? You live and interact with me every day, and I feel invisible. I feel visible in a physical sense, but my true nature and my soul work is completely invisible. And not only is invisible, but not made space for.
Mm-hmm.
There's no place for me to thrive or survive the way others have, and people might say, well, as neurotypical, it's like, life is always hard, so what's your problem? But for me, it's like, not only is life hard, but life was never even made for me to even attempt a life like other people, except for the advocacy of people who are fighting for disability rights and humanization, human rights in general. And now I'm also queer, so like queer rights as well. There's been people who've lost their lives, countless lives, and continue to lose their lives, people with mental health, just trying to live in this system. And what I would tell my daughter?
Yeah, maybe take a breath.
Just that alone is enough to say, like, really what I just said. This system is set up for a very select few, and the lie in that is told that it's for everyone. But the truth is it isn't. Capitalism isn't for everybody. It's for the elite and those that are succeeding on the very top tiers in that hierarchy. Disability is a threat to that because it doesn't involve hierarchy. It disintegrates the hierarchy of capitalism and interaction. It says, my needs are different than yours, but I have a right to my needs that are different than yours, and so do you.
It must be interesting to bear the burden of demanding a right for something that the society devalues, discredits, denies.
It's not even that they deny it. They don't even see it.
They'll include it. Yeah,
they don't even see it.
It's not included.
Unless it's visible, they don't even see it. Even when it's visible for people who have
the visibility. So whether you can see it, it's a materialist society, and it's capitalist. Those are things you're naming. Limit what can be real, valued, acknowledged. So if it's not, like if you're queer, you're having a gender or identity thing, it's an invisible body that you're working with, your gender body or whatever. There is also this mental health that's related to that, that's invisible. And it's part of the invisible body. And you can be disabled because of experiences you're going through with mental health, queerness, and all that, but it's invisible. And so now...
So how
do you relate to that, I guess, in a world
how do I relate
that
to
doesn't,
this?
that denies it, you know?
So I've encountered tremendous barriers in my life that most people could not even manage to go through. I have spoken to neurotypical people and neurodivergent people that are just like, my God, I can't even process what you're saying because it's too much for them just to listen to, not even experience, embody, and trying to survive within.
They get afraid really quickly. They get scared, yeah.
It's scary because
they just don't understand.
Because it challenges their fundamental belief system that this system is working.
It's, you and I can say they, and we actually do understand, because I think we have both mental health issues and gender journeys that are invisible to a large number of relationships in our lives and the general society. And so we're going to experience this a lot.
Experience what?
This sense of them. We're both just saying them, but I want to humanize it and also just name what it is. It's people who are neurotypical, who have no idea these queer or trans experiences exist. They're cisgendered. That's what that is. And then neurotypical means they have no idea that neurodivergence exists. So conditions like
they
OCD,
assume
ADHD,
everybody else thinks and breathes and acts like they do.
PTSD, you know, things that are happening on a mental health level that a large number of people deal with. So because it's invisible. There's also pain, so people deal with chronic pain, and I find that very invisible as well, because you can't see it. It's not like you've had an appendage amputated or something very visible to your physical body that's visible, so like people just erase it. And so what we're bringing attention to is the invisible. Yeah.
So why is it important to neurotypical people? Like, why are we doing this?
So we're starting with that question.
Why should they care?
Why should people
Because we're still here.
Don't experience pain, who don't struggle with a mental health disorder, who aren't dealing with a queer identity journey.
I believe this is why eugenics is truly survives to this day, is because they're like, well, why don't we just get rid of these people? They're holding us back. Survival of the fittest. Nature would have just chopped them off. Like, why why are we saying that we have a right to live and thrive?
True. And the reason you're bringing this up is relevant. I come from a family that has worked on prison justice accountability work, and there is there's a huge percentage, I think it's like half of people, there's a huge percentage of people with mental illness that are in prison and that are impoverished and homeless. The unhoused and the ones that are housed in prisons are disproportionately dealing with mental illness, and we are an unresourced society. And I actually think if people are dealing with gender identity, social identities, mental disorders and illnesses, and they're homeless by greater numbers, which they are, and policed and imprisoned, this is relevant for you to ask. Also, as a health practitioner, I've seen for sure these carries more risk and more reality of bearing chronic illness and chronic pain. So it's every level that we demand justice. We demand justice in that
we have a right to even be here.
We're being actually really harmed as a population because of our society's lack of care for these things.
Mm-hmm.
The invisible was erased in hundreds of years of colonization, which did involve genocides of people in Europe and around the world. The empires from Europe traveled. And so let's just take a breath into that. A lot of ancestries carry an erasure of the invisible. And we're on lands that often are occupied by cultures and societies that erase the invisible. So the lands remember the cultures and ways with the invisible, and we all live on those lands that are sort of have been through processes of erasure.
So question. If we'd lived in those time periods, do you think I still would have been seen and held in those communities? And would it possibly revered?
Yes, that is a great question. I was going to say the basic question is not would you have been held, it's how. Because yes, of course you would have been. And I believe underneath all of what you can see as mental, physical, social disorder now in modern times, I believe that is a suppressed gift for those older times. And actually, if we did have a sacred society, you as an empath would not even get to the point of the express level of the disorders you're experiencing now. You would not. You would have actually had channels and vessels for your knowledge and knowing and your ways of that you embody that are empathic, meaning you take in your environment, you shapeshift it in your body, you work as a human channel and oracle, and that's on every level of your sensory awareness. Today, you call that type of multi-channel awareness ADHD. That is the consciousness of ADHD people like you and myself. We have 10 thoughts at once and we're weaving them. There's a sense of overwhelm of all the systems, and the society doesn't support these kind of things. You have to find a niche. I'm finding arts, entrepreneurial stuff,
and I'm finding meaning making
holistic
and
health,
spiritual connection through creativity.
Yeah, that is where we have gifts. So in the older societies were mostly formed around the gifts of people like us. We would have probably been highly revered and highly placed because we can tell stories, we can do crafts, we can do healing. We would have done all that.
Some people believe in letting it go.
We would have.
They believe that we've moved on from that. We've mechanized. So what do you have to say in response to those kind of ideologies and rhetoric?
Well, the conquerors write history and textbooks for their children. I mean, we learned all that the Renaissance period and all these dark ages offered us was leeches to drain our blood. And we get this really scary version of what medieval medicine was. It was so much more than that, oh my god. And actually, I use it still in practice, many other practitioners do. There's many ways we use sciences of it that are basically the roots of modern science in our society, come from more things that are intuitive and occult and have to do with the cosmological divine order. That's a spiritual, divine, invisible, geography and anatomy. And that traditional culture was found around the world. It relates to all the natural cosmos of alchemy and animism, which contains living elements that are alive in us and the whole cosmos and natural world that relate and are the same on a continuum. So it's all alive. That's just so it's conscious, sentient. You can relate to it. It's relational, the entire thing, and it's all woven with us. I relate to life like that. It's a more, I would say, indigenous cultural way for my ancestries to live like that. And this land, the people's land, it's very similar.
Okay, but how do we integrate that with a modern day sense?
Well, we do. That's a good question. But I mean, I feel like we're getting off topic of mental health, but I like this topic. It's all related to how the invisible was erased. I think the thing is that we still have a lot of modern animism that works, and I think we'd have another conversation about that.
Okay.
About how we're living with animism still, even though we don't know it.
So what do you want to know about my disability?
But now, the other layer, the invisible, we're focusing on today is mental health. I mean, I think our modern society has given us something, actually. When it was stripped of its religious occult stuff, it did develop psychiatry and psychology and medications, and it put energy and awareness and research into differentiation diagnosis and medications for mental health. And that's actually a really big advantage of modern science that the old alchemists did not have. And I think it's all, personally I like to work with it all together. You know, medication, holistic medicine, the whole thing goes together. So I think the old and the new go together very well. I think alchemy traditions of ancient medicine support modern medicine's work with psychiatric medications, which you and I both take, and that help us very much with our mental illness. And when we don't take them, we've experienced damage in our lives.
Okay, where are we going with this?
What is important for you now, living with the mental disorders that you do, for people in your life to know, to visibilize your experience that you're having in the
Interacting with neurotypical life is exhausting for me. It's literally telling a fish to climb a tree. Obviously, the fish doesn't breathe out of water. It doesn't have arms and legs in the way that other land creatures have. Like, there's so much there. That's how I feel as a disabled individual. Is that I'm just constantly told, like, you're so great, you're so perfect, everything is great about you, what's your problem? And I'm like, actually, no one's actually stopped to truly get to know who I am. And say, what are you feeling? Except for the people in the business that I'm like, I'm running into social challenges, I can't function after a day's work, I can't function at a normal job, I'm told constantly, like, that's normal for everyone, and I'm like, but if it's normal for everyone, why are we doing it if we're crashing that badly?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? Why aren't we doing something that will be beneficial for everyone and beneficial for that person? And that's the disability that's speaking through, is saying something is not quite right. And my body is reacting and my mind is reacting because I'm meant for meaning making. I'm not meant for doing cashiering or becoming a doctor.
I think we need more culture around supporting our own process with our mental illness and figuring out what they are, what they need, what they're telling us, what our options are.
And now I see that more in mental health advocacy for young people. But all the people like myself who've got left behind and just left to suffer on a very deep level in isolation, in neurotypical communities that are literally making me ill.
Okay.
And I have to co-parent with that.
So, it might be hard to say, like, what do you need now or whatever, what do you wish you had? Maybe not. Do you think it's something you could say, like, what do you wish you could have had, right? Because it's really interesting to what you would wish for youth going through this, what you went through. You know, going through what you went through, what do you wish you would have had? And as a parent, as an adult, maybe too. Like, what
for example, my friend who has 2 neurodivergent children, who's considered neurotypical at first, is realizing they're neurodivergent. They had to advocate and lose connection with so many communities before they finally got the support, and they have financial support to be able to do psychotherapy 4 times a week and check in with their psychotherapist.
It's a lot.
Yeah. That's not even including all the supports for their children and the ongoing community support and listening of other community members, including myself, to support this parent.
What do you wish existed?
That my psychiatrist wasn't inundated by so many patients, that I could receive a one-on-one check-in, when I'm needing certain supports that I'm confused at. That I can know the difference when I can take action for myself and when I need to step back. I haven't cultivated that as refined processes at this time. I need to be around other neurodivergents that get me and want to listen to me and actually take an interest in my interests of poetry and art and creating, and also spiritualism. I'm very spiritual. I believe in creator and I believe in creation. I am a creator and I am creation. We are all part of creation. It's really hard to be around neurodivergent queer people that don't believe in God or creation or creator or some sort of spirit. When I embody it, I feel like I'm invisible in that sense too, because it's being damned in religions and misused in religion and torn and spit out in negative ways and harm people on such a deep level, including myself.
Yeah.
So
there's a loneliness. It's hard to find people that are all of these things, and let alone even in the public. People are
and a parent
kind of overwhelmed by these and afraid of them, you know, when you bring them up. And they're core aspects of experience for you and identity. And I relate to, I totally have the same thing going on. I don't have the same thing to level you do with certain disorders and disabilities with your mental health. But I empathize as a transgender man and as somebody with ADHD and different disabilities, depression, other things that are really invisible but that have damaged my life. I'm just curious today about, as we come into awareness, like, how can people better understand us? Because that would have sure helped go through it, because it is really hard to be persecuted while you're needing help.
Don't assume that I am capable like you are. I get that judgment constantly. Well, you can just get a driver's license and you can go drive and you can drive your kid to school and you can go and do this and you can just get a job and you can do, like, people don't even realize getting up in the morning for me and just getting breakfast on the table. I'm like, yeah, good job, Cedar. That was huge formulation and organization.
How could it be helpful within families to explain to family members about someone struggling with mental illness, is what we want to call it? Because it could be a cold, or they could have pneumonia, you know, or they could have a mental disorder, and it seems like they both can't get out of bed, can't eat, can't feed themselves. It's it affects the body's ability to eat a lot of times. There's no energy, it's the same. I mean, symptom-wise, it's the same as somebody who literally is recovering from like mono, or do you know
you're
what I mean?
You're my partner. You can answer that. You're my partner.
Well,
what have you noticed?
It's a lot easier for people to relate to someone with mono or pneumonia than it is to relate to somebody with a mental disorder that is having the same symptoms. Usually people, even myself, I'm like, get frustrated with the OCD loopings, and we've created different words to try to make that frustration diminish. We're creating strategies to live with it, which we should share, and we can, but it's genuinely, I'm better than most people though at saying, hey, you have limits and you need respect, and the people around you need to respect that more. And do they understand this? Do they know this? And it's so hard sometimes to advocate for people to know and respect what you're going through, because they're not aware of it, and it is disrespectful to you what happens on a regular basis. It is. You get very disrespected because of what's not seen. And it's like, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? You have to rest and sleep a lot. You have to sleep and rest a lot. But people don't understand that. They think you're being lazy and selfish, and they'll demoralize you. Right? They'll say, you have no morals. You are breaking moral code. You are obviously lazy and you're wasting your life. You're selfish. It's intense. It's actually really intense, hey. I'm sorry, is that okay? You have to be hard to hear that. I'm sorry.
I live it.
I know. It's intense, hey?
I live it because there are things I'm very capable of doing, and I'm a very capable person. Mm-hmm. But it's to a point where I crash and burn, and most people don't see that unless they're very close with me. And for people to get very close with me, they make a lot of space for me. and they sacrifice a lot of themselves for that space for me.
Well, and I know that you struggle with certain mental illnesses, and I know what those mental illnesses struggle with. So that empowers me with knowledge to relate to you with. So when I see certain behaviors or things in you, I know that that's not you, that's the illness. It's like, would I get mad at somebody if they were sneezing because they had a cold? No. I might be kind of like uncomfortable around it and jarred sensorily. Similarly to if somebody's kind of borderline aggro because of their mental illness. I mean, we can have uncomfortable feelings around it, but it helps us humanize it and calm and ground and humanize the person when we have the knowledge of the disorder, of the illness. If we see it like an illness.
Because if you name it and you label it, it doesn't allow the person to grow either.
Oh, I disagree. I think naming it can allow the person to grow better because you can set up the right conditions for growth for that disorder.
But a lot of people have stigma around illnesses. They only have certain working knowledge of certain illnesses like OCD, bipolar, schizophrenia. You know, they have their own version of it culturally already in place. They haven't actually created the humanity at all to even make space for someone like myself to even talk to them. And every single human being is different in that sense. My experience of my illnesses might be very different than the next person of their experiences with illness.
So what I'm hearing that is it would be useful for us all to have inclusion culture, like actual behaviors where we can practice together and be in relationship.
We talk about no bullying and there's no inclusion culture. There's no humanity building.
I feel like
there's no connectivity building.
Cedar's expressing, you're expressing anger. You're expressing frustration. I hear it. I hear you have been
through the ringer,
affected by this in your relationships. And so if we could all have culture to relate across difference in a way that was empowering and we could grow better into relationship with ourselves and each other, rather than limit growth by denying it's there, being afraid to talk about it, misunderstanding it, pathologizing, thinking somebody, moralizing on top of it and projecting that when somebody's actually, you know, they don't need to be judged by that because they have a different set of judgments.
And I came from a different experience.
They are coming from a totally different baseline. And we need to understand differences of baseline because we look the same kind of.
Tell me more about differences of baseline.
Well, before I medicated ADHD, for instance, I felt like I had I had a major track record of horrible loss of relationships and really a lot of things that I valued. But I felt like on a body level baseline, on a constitutional level, I had physical, mental, emotional, and energetic like turbine going in my body. And I would have panic. It felt like a rolling panic is what I said. And that's
what I live with.
There's different versions of it that would get bad with different transits or hormones or whatever. Because the hormones would play around with it and like, but it was a disorder of my baseline system. And I also have a baseline with ADHD of everything that is logged as a behavior issue with ADHD I am like textbook of it. And it has done a number on my life, right? Okay. So without the medication, I really noticed the baseline of my body feels really different and my behavior track record with like my life management and relationships is really, you know,
growing.
It grows with the diagnosis because I have support. I have the support of the medication. I have support of my knowledge of like, oh, these are my challenges and these are what the gifts are and this is how I gotta make this livable, you know. But knowledge empowers me. That's why I feel like we're talking. Because I want people to have the culture. And I want to prevent like criminalizing this in ourselves and others. In social ways, like real ways, you know. I mean, we have movies in Disney like Encanto or whatever. And he's not even, they were just scared of the prophecy that he brought. But it reminds me of like Child in the Family. It's a dark sheep, right? It's like black sheep, you know. And then he I don't know, go watch the movie Encanto. For all the Brunos, you know, we need to welcome home the Liliths, the Brunos, the people, you know, the stigmatized ones that people can't really find a place for, and even being sick is included in that. I feel like it humanizes things when you realize, oh, you know, an addiction's an illness. It can be even inherited. ADHD is also. My dad is definitely similar to me. And it humanizes it, you know.
It's teaching people how to be human, like
Yeah,
how to care,
yeah. There
how
are
to have
actually
empathy.
difference of people.
Like there's literally people that
Yeah.
don't feel for other people.
That is a mental illness stage or permanent state. It's like sometimes people slip into a period of like numbness that no emotions, can't feel. And it's I've heard a lot of people talk about that. There's a lot of interesting differences of how people can exist, and that changes sometimes for that person. But there's some real big baselines that people live in that are different than what we are taught. Like we're taught everyone's all this one way, but we're not.
I remember trying to teach.
We have quite a difference.
Or how to share with my daughter about racism. And one of the things she said, which was really intense to hear, was, well, why don't they end up going into their own community and building their own community? And I said...
Was it who?
This was Celeste.
No, why didn't who do that? She was suggesting people
do
that? Or?
People of color, black people, like, why don't they build their own communities outside of white communities if they're persecuted?
Yeah.
And
well,
I'm
they
like,
do.
They have, but that's not integration, and it's not working in the world. The world is working with so many different diverse populations and experiences. Why should they isolate and go into their... That's segregation. Segregation was proven not to work. Why?
Oh, well, I mean, there's also affinity, which is different. It's self-segregation so you can have sanctuary. And that is, the sanctuary of affinity is a need. I've survived through a lot of affinity spaces myself. As a trans person who was raised and born culturally female for a while, there's so many different things as a queer or female.
As affinity. But we're not talking about affinity. I think what my daughter was talking about was segregation. Like, why don't we not why are we not separate?
I don't know if she was really suggesting that. She might have been just saying, hey, well, if these people are experiencing this with these people, why don't we go over here and get away from them? Which, fair enough, I think that's called affinity. That's why we have communities, we have neighborhoods, we have organizations,
But in neighborhoods and communities, all this stuff exists.
Well, then we do need to work on relating across difference. I hear that's what you're saying. I think that's the thread here, is that we're really talking about relating across difference.
And why?
And having culture.
It comes back down to the eugenics. Because what happens if we eradicate all the disabled people? We eradicate all the people of color. We eradicate all the queers. We just kill them all. Like what happened with Hitler.
Okay.
Trying to kill them.
Hold on.
Like,
it's not just with Hitler, because if you live in a society without a medical system that's great, or any support systems, and you actually are stigmatized, criminalized, as I just said, you're going to end up homeless or in jail or persecuted within your family as you're experiencing, which is really, really awful. You're constantly afraid of all your basics going. You're constantly terrified and feeling persecuted. So I feel like we do have...
And sometimes supported at the same time.
Yes, but we do have a really intense fallout now. And you can say eugenics during Hitler, and I guess it looks like that. But I'm saying right now, people are seriously impacted now.
Seriously what?
Impacted now with these kind of social eugenics. Because of our lack of systems of care, people end up sick and dead.
Because we thrive better. And so what I hear you saying is like we thrive better if we are in an integrated, acknowledged humanitarian society that involves everyone. We all learn from our different perspectives.
Okay.
Which are different.
Here's the thing. If leadership of disability were to really be a thing, I think it's this amazing leadership. Because look what happened. Basically, COVID was disabling people from working. Okay. So we got to see an economy that was, everybody got a basic income, and it started to be like focused on that we need communities of mutual aid and care. That was amazing. And that was a disability-led movement internationally.
Was it amazing?
A lot of people fought it because they still wanted to work, and they were really, really upset that they were being held back from their ability. I want to continue with my ability. Because a lot of people have their ability yoked to really vulnerable things, like survival, provision, and it's very intense, and their identity.
Okay, where are we going with this?
So, ability justice is a leading topic. I mean, it's, you say maybe it's COVID or about vaccines or whatever, but really I think it's about ability. We have a society, if you're going to include people with disability and humanize it, and include it, we're going to have to reinvent capitalism. And we're going to have to transition people there, because COVID showed us a lot. It showed people want to fight for their ability. They want to fight for the system that enslaves them to that ability. uses, manipulates their vulnerability as a survival and their, you know, provision responsibilities. So like, you have to work, and then people are like, you can't stop us from working, and you know, get super over identified with it. But then there's this whole other way we've seen that we can live, where people actually are in communities of care, respect for the vulnerable, led by that, actually live with respect to people's vulnerabilities, actually modify the whole society around that, and give people basic income. Don't make us all have to have, like, earn it. We had support networks. If we could reinvent society more like that, I would be excited. I would. Not necessarily with the same social boundaries, everybody stuck in their house as COVID, not that. But with more of the things that we saw, that were centering the leadership of people with disability and health vulnerability, and we didn't have to have our basics to survive and have all of that. That, you know, that would be nice. If we
Do
had
you know
more
that
care.
disabled people have been fighting for the
mental
right to
illness.
work from home, and then it took COVID for them to be like, oh yeah, you can work from home. And now they're finally being able to access. Neurotypicals are getting the right that disabled people have been fighting for years. And it took neurotypicals to go through the similar impact that COVID brought to be like, oh, yeah, we can do it now. While people are dying because they can't function. You know, it's just frustrating.
We have a lot of
That's what I'm
things.
expressing.
Yeah, we have a lot of things society focuses on. What we learned with COVID was when we focus on health as a society and the vulnerabilities of that and inclusion with that. That's rad, and there were some good fallouts. There were some bad ones, obviously, with managing that. People really with mental illness suffered a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lack of support. We do exist in a void. They were, you know, vulnerable. People are criminalized for their disability and their mental illness. And so I think, yeah, we've got some work to do. We live in a void of culture, which is why we have this beautiful family dream house. It's like a portal to
So
the
that's
unknown.
what I thought
Like, what's
we're
beyond
having
this?
is I didn't realize you want to have these conversations with other people. I thought we were going to do a series on that,
Yeah,
talking
we
about
are.
mental health specific.
Oh, for sure we are.
Okay.
We can also talk to other people about
Mhm.
this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. That was Nathan. It's just cool. I'm just taking it in. You told me that.
I've told Cedar this a number of times. I've told you this a number of times. No shame. No shame. We talked about it.
We did.
Yeah, I was excited. I've told you.
To talk to other people about
Yes.
this and record them.
Yes, and
Okay.
about, like, I've told you about being excited about interviewing people about their relationships to things that are stigmatized or hard. In addition, and maybe you thought it was kind of a different topic, but I see it as related. I do want to interview people. Yeah.
Okay.
Because things that we have void of culture around, I'm very interested in creating culture around, and yeah, there's really important discussions I think some people can have, like you know, and I think you'll have important discussions with people. We're making the invisible visible. And we're learning about what's missing, what that's been like, and what we need.
I need belonging.
We need belonging. I found my belonging start to awaken during COVID. When I had a base income and some space, I actually had a spiritual awakening, and
Great.
I haven't come
didn't.
back. No, but it really did end up spiraling into a mental health crisis, and now I'm recovering from that. I really, didn't know how to keep going when everything slammed back on me, right? I actually kept kind of running away, to this other direction because I was trying to hold on to what I learned there. And I still am trying to integrate it. How do I take on what's really right for me and who I am, you know? We're learning, and I think it's been revealed if we do give our disability space to show what we need living within this invisible disability. It does it's made me need to recreate my life to include it. Starting one, I had to minimize my relationships, and they did that on their own because my disability prevented me from having them, and I had to process that emotionally, but then just come to peace with it, and then in that peace and solitude rebuild more carefully and slowly my relationships. You know, you and I have been a sanctuary because we understand. Yeah. Getting company, getting knowledge. I'm not debilitated by grief anymore like I was every day for years.
I guess I feel debilitated by grief still. It's a lot to handle.
Yeah.
You know, you can only be kicked so much. So you're like, oh, that really hurts. Like, that's what it feels like. Mentally and emotionally.
It seems like we need a culture of recovery.
Recovery from what, though?
I guess from the impacts of colonial violence. That's what I call this, is the whole umbrella of like, you erase the invisible, including somebody's identity and their gender and their mental health reality, and then just like throw it in and scapegoat them and gaslight them. You know, you're gonna feel haggard. We need maybe a culture of recovery that's like, hey, you know, how do I live with respect for who I am well? You know, how do I become well while living with who I am? Like, reclaim what's been erased and denied.
I'm starting to feel really sick again, so like,
We should stop.
Yeah, I think this is a good place to say goodbye.
Yeah.
So I can take care of my body.
Yeah.
And my heart and soul, for that matter.
Yeah. Thank you. Do you want to finish anything?